Okay.
All right, I think we're on. Hey, everybody, welcome to the first video, Killing Me Small's podcast. I am Mike Small, and I'm really excited to do this. I haven't done one of these in a while, and I've got my favorite guest, the great Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Keith, it's been a minute. How you
What,
been?
what's up, killing me? Killing me, Smalls. How you been, brother?
We
You
haven't
been
talked
well?
since you came back from Orlando.
Yeah. It's been a minute. It's been a minute, man.
And well, the Sixers are never boring. So let's talk some Sixers. There's a lot to go over here from the last couple of days. First of all, before we even get into Daryl Morey, Elton Brand, all the changes, what could happen to the roster, Sham Charania comes out about 2 hours ago and tweets that the Sixers could make a play for James Harden. What do you think about that possibility? First of all, would
Yeah,
you do it if you were the Sixers? If you could get him, I would assume based on the way Morey gushed about Joel Embiid, that would be a Simmons trade.
yeah. And before we talk about that, I want to give credit to the guy who had it a month ago, and that was like John Clark for NBC Sports Philadelphia. So
Yeah.
he had that a month ago, and people wrote it. I'm not making a knock at Shams, and I'm sorry to do this, but I just want to give the guy who
We'll
had
give
it,
credit where it's due. Yeah.
due credit. Yeah, so John Clark had it. Um, the thing is, it just seems like James Harden is a great player. I give him a lot of credit. He makes a lot of money. But you can't if you trade for him, you can't just do a straight up trade. So you would have to. It seems like the Sixers are really invested in Joel Embiid. So in order for you to get him, you would have to give up Ben Simmons. I don't know if Tobias Harris can get the deal done. I don't know if Al Horford could get the deal done. So you would probably have to give up. You would have to give up Ben Simmons.
I know it wouldn't. Why would you trade James Harden for one or two bad contracts? You would get a young superstar if you're going to give up on him.
Yeah, you want to get a young superstar, but the thing is with James Harden, not only that, you have to give up Ben Simmons, and you would also have to give up maybe Josh Richardson, or you would have to probably give up Matisse Thybulle or Mike Scott, someone like that. But the thing is, James Harden is former MVP, an eight-time All Star, whereas with a team that basically is saying, well, we need to get fans in the seats when they come. James Harden is a box office guy. So if I'm Houston, I'm not 100% sure if I want to do that deal. Now, I understand it with Daryl Morey. It makes a lot of sense. He was the general manager there. And you look at James Harden and you see Joel Embiid, right? But it just seems to me it's going to be a lot of slow standing around watching. Now, again, they're both phenomenal players. But I just don't know. I understand what the Sixers may have interest, but I don't know if I'm Houston if I'm willing to get rid of James
Well, I'm
Harden.
trying to think about it from their side, and I think it makes sense from this perspective. I think by letting D'Antoni go, by Daryl Morey leaving, they're going to be a different team. They're not going to play the same way that they were playing. Now they're spending a lot of money on one player, right? 40, you have the numbers there, 40 something million
Mm-hmm.
dollars a year, which is insane. Now, if you're going to get off a contract like that, how much better are you going to do trading a guy like that than getting a 24-year-old all star who was a third team all NBA player? I mean, I think Simmons is a really interesting prospect in terms of, I mean, obviously he's a great player, but what's great about somebody like him, if you determine that he doesn't fit on the Sixers and say Milwaukee decides they're probably not going to get Giannis to sign, how much better is Milwaukee going to do than trading him for Simmons? How much better is Houston going to do than trading Harden for Simmons? I mean, to me, we always talk about, when you trade out of a contract and a superstar, you never get value back. That's about as good as you're going to get in this league, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. But the one thing you got to realize, Ben Simmons does have a trade kicker too. So, the price is going to go up. Secondly, the thing about Ben Simmons is, I mean, we're talking about he was a first team all defensive player. So you're going to lose that. Um, the trade kick, he's in line to make 30 million. So I understand that. But I think that Ben Simmons, if he just develops a jump shot, I know we've been saying that for the last 3 years, but the future just looks bright with him. And I get it. I understand it. And James Harden, here's the one thing that could benefit the Sixers or benefit Houston. Houston. If you get a guy like Josh Richardson and Ben Simmons, then that's $11 million coming off the cap the following season,
Right.
right? So that's good. And the same thing with Mike Scott and Zaire Smith. Those are going to be two guys who are going to come off the books within the year. And then Ben Simmons works out, it's going to be great. The problem is if you're Houston, then you're saying to yourself, who's going to be my primary ball handler? Because Ben is going to want the ball in his hands, and Russell Westbrook is not giving it up to Ben Simmons. Now, it was James Harden's team, so they took turns, right? But I do not. I think that Ben is going to want the ball, and Russell Westbrook is going to want the ball.
You don't
So it
think
sounds great on paper,
over there, like that
huh?
Draymond Green role over there.
He could, but I don't think when you have a Russell Westbrook, I don't think like him and Draymond wouldn't work out. You know what I mean? Because Russell's going to want the ball. He's a point guard. He's going to want the ball. Like see, it worked out great in Golden State because Steph Curry. You look at him, he's a point guard, but he's really a shooter. You know what I mean? He was like a two guard who they turned into a point guard, basically. You
Right.
know, so it works out well there. But to me, the question is, James Harden is good, but the question is, if you're Houston, what are you going to do with Westbrook?
Well, I'm not sure that you make that deal worrying about Westbrook. I think you make that deal worrying about your next 5 years. And if you're Houston, you probably think this guy's 24 years old. Yeah, it'll be a little clunky for a while, but we'll get out of Westbrook somehow, or we'll get something for him, or maybe they try to figure. I mean, Westbrook still has some value in the league. Maybe that's it's got to be a commitment. I mean, look, we're speculating. We don't know if anything's going to happen, but based on yesterday's press conference, Daryl Morey gushed about about Joel Embiid. Seemed like the other guy was kind of second fiddle in that press conference, didn't it?
It could
Am
be,
I
but
reading, am I reading into it?
it could be, but in his defense, he wasn't really asked a lot about Ben Simmons either. You know,
He was pretty proactive and effusive with his Embiid praise.
yeah, I mean, because but you also got to realize, and I get that. I mean, he really likes Embiid. That's obvious.
Yeah.
But also, there was a lot of people going in there saying, "How is this going to work? How is he going to work with Embiid?"
Oh,
Like,
the whole center.
so that was the narrative. And I also felt like he was out there to destroy that narrative. Like, I really want Embiid. We're going to do it. And I had Yao Ming. He was a dominant center. Hall of Famer. And I'm looking forward to it because let's think about this. Before this season, a lot of people talk about Mike D'Antoni, but it was actually Daryl Morey who decided to go away from the center position and have a smaller lineup. So I felt like, yes, obvious. It's obvious that he was gushing over Joel Embiid, and he really likes him. Give him that. And it's obvious that he's going to utilize him. But I also felt like you got to hurry up and squash the narrative quick, fast, in a hurry that I don't like centers. You know, so that was one of those things. But again, it is going to be Joel's team. If everything goes the way it is as planned. But I also, think that Maury was going out there and being proactive in regards to letting everybody know big fella is going to be here.
Fair point. Fair point. So let's do some. I love that movie, The Da Vinci Code, where you can like look for clues and figure out what people really meant. And that's how I was trying to look at that press conference yesterday. So if you
Mm-hmm.
look at what happened over the last, I guess, what 4 to 6 weeks, whatever it was, Elton Brand comes out and says, okay, the collaborative stuff is done. I'm in charge. I'm going to get basketball people. So they go get a coach, and it's Doc Rivers. Great hire, guy with a pedigree. Um, then they go and, you were the first to report that they got rid of, they moved on with Alex Rucker yesterday, and Ned Cohen's been kind of put on double secret probation, living in the Howie Roseman closet somewhere in Philadelphia. Um, and so the Colangelo guys were put off to the side. Then they go out and the owners make a move to get Josh Harris. And they said, wow, it just kind of happened this way. First of all, does anybody in their right mind really believe that Elton Brand nudged Josh Harris to go ahead and go get Daryl Morey? We have to get him to be my boss. That was a little unbelievable to me. How did you take it?
The same way you did.
I
The
was just like,
same way. It was one of those things where, because let's face it, once Daryl Morey came on board, it was one of those things like, wow, look how they did Elton. Wow. Elton was finally going to get the power. And then all of a sudden he doesn't have it. And I felt like that was one of those things where the PR people say beforehand, look, this is what we're going to say, and let's go along with it. So then everyone thinks he's on board with it. And the thing is, if they would have came out and he would have said, you know what, I was a little distraught, I was a little upset over this, but I feel like this is now I realize it's best for the organization. I can learn. No one's going to fault him because that's just like you
I would have
saying,
respected him more. I mean,
yeah,
he said
exactly.
nothing. You can't say this, but I can. I mean, I've perceived him as nothing but a puppet since he got here, and this isn't going to help him.
Now, well, you know what? In the way you talking about the way he backed off, the way he said it,
I'm
or
talking more about the way that they said, okay, you're the general manager. We did a search. We couldn't find anybody. We put you in there. And then he admits that he really didn't know what he was doing in the beginning. And then he says, it's my team. I'm in charge. I'm going to get basketball people under me. Then he does. And then they put somebody over him. So to me, it just looks like they want him around. I'm sure he's a good guy. I'm sure he has good relationships with players. And I'm sure people like talking to him around the league. But he really doesn't have any power.
yeah, but he never had power. And the thing
That's
is,
my point. That's my
the
point.
thing is, but see, here's the problem. The problem is, um, I think they keep putting him in bad situations, right? I think like, okay, we both said he never had the power, whatever. And in regards, what I mean by putting them in bad situations is they'll have him come out here, he'll make statements, he'll say stuff, and then next thing you know, we all like, okay, brother, this didn't happen the way you said it was going to do. And now it looks like they're going to have him big man in charge. And then all of a sudden now it's like they're going to take the rug from underneath him and he's supposed to be happy with it. I felt like there was times where he was just following the script. Like, I mean, think about it. So, so after the
Oh,
season
he
ends,
definitely had talking points yesterday that were
mhm,
well rehearsed talking
yeah,
points.
exactly. I mean, all the times, like the collaborative effort didn't work. We relied heavily on analytics. We want basketball people. I mean, we're talking about the press conference that he had at the end of the season.
Yeah.
They were all talking points,
Hmm.
all talking points, you know. And so it seemed like it was like, okay, they knew that they were getting criticized for that. So you come out and you say this and you say that. And then the whole time what they're saying is we're looking for someone underneath them. Now I don't know if you read it or not or whatever, but I wrote a story a couple months ago saying they were looking for a president of basketball operations.
You did.
Yeah, and I mentioned Daryl Morey's name.
You
I
did.
mentioned a couple other people because my sources told me they were looking for him. They kept denying it, saying no, we're looking for someone underneath Elton. They kept denying it, right? Then comes to find out, then all of a sudden they get a guy, right? They come out and they get a president who basically just conveniently is available now, and they pick him up. So to me, they were always looking for a president. They just all, I mean, they were like they never stopped. But what they did is they did it on the low key, right? So they get this guy. Elton doesn't get his chance to lead the organization. Now the thing is, if they had 100% faith in Elton, like they said they did publicly, then they wouldn't have looked for somebody else.
So let
You
me
know what
ask
I
you
mean?
this. What is Elton Brand's role?
I
I
mean,
mean,
I don't know.
remember when the Sixers had Larry Brown and Billy King as the GM? It was Larry Brown was making the decisions. Billy King made phone calls. And then when Larry left, he took over. Kind of feels like that right now, but just, not from the coach, but from the president of basketball operations.
Yeah, I don't know what his role is going to be. I'll be honest with you because see, here's the thing: but in a way, I kind of think that this is better for Elton than if he was the general manager and there was no president. And here's my reasoning: because Doc Rivers was going to have more power than him. Whenever a coach says, whenever a coach says that me and the general manager are going to work together and make decisions together, you've been around long enough to know that that's not true,
Right.
right? So it's like that
I
means the
mean, I'm
coach
making
is
the
calling the
decision.
shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the coach is making the decision. So then you have Elton, and then you go ahead and you get this guy, Peter Dinwiddie, who is going to be the executive vice president of basketball ops. Well, that was Alex Rucker's role. And from everything I heard, Alex Ruckers was the one making the decisions, right? The owners had final say, but Alex Rucker was the guy
Do
that
you think,
that was.
you think Alex Rucker signed Horford? Max Tobias decided to let Jimmy Butler walk. You think that was
I think
mostly it?
the owners did that. I mean, like I think the owners had a heavy hand in it, but I
Yeah.
think Alex Rucker had more power than what people wanted you to believe. I heard that Alex Ruck. Now, here's the thing: Elton Brand and Al Horford are really good friends. They were former teammates, right? I think that you know, I think that when they start looking at the analytics of everything, then they just start saying Tobias could play as a three and have the same success as Jimmy Butler. That's what they thought in that position. But Tobias is a power forward.
Right.
But so they use their analytics to determine that. Alex Rucker is a huge analytics guy. They looked at Al Horford analytically. He looks good. They never thought about him and Joel Embiid wouldn't fit together. So Alex Rucker made a lot of those decisions. See, the thing that lets you know that Alex Rucker was running the show and all that is that the fact that why didn't they let Elton go? You know what I mean? Like if he's the guy that's in charge
Well,
and all
I
this
mean,
happened on his watch.
theoretically, yes, but also theoretically, Elton, I'm told, has a good reputation in the league. People like him, and you need somebody to make phone calls. You need somebody to negotiate. You need somebody to help recruit players. That's maybe the Elton role. Am I overstating that?
I mean, they like Ned Cohen. Ned Cohen worked in the league office. Ned Cohen dealt with stuff like that. You know what I mean? Nah, I mean, I'm not buying that
Okay.
because see, because the thing is, so you get Peter Dinwiddie, it's the same thing. Peter Dinwiddie is like one of the most underappreciated people in the NBA, according to people. Peter Dinwiddie has more contacts in the league than I would assume Elton in regards to front office role, right? So it's like when you want someone that's like the contacts, like okay, right now the Sixers are capped out. So you talking about recruiting. You can't recruit until you get freed up from this cap space. And like when you make a trade, are you really recruiting to get a trade? Like, hey, how you doing, man? Like, me and you are good friends. Yeah, you remember we had coffee that one day. You want to give me a discount on this trade? Nah, it doesn't work that way, man. Like, you know what I mean? So they can say what they want. Now, all I'm saying is right now, I believe that if Elton would have been the president, people would have been looking and saying, is Peter Dinwiddie making these moves or is Doc Rivers making these moves? Is Elton the puppet? That's what they would have said. That's what they said. Now, right now, when you have Daryl Morey in there and you have Doc,
It's all Daryl
Elton
now.
can, huh?
everybody, it's all going to come on Daryl now.
Not only that, it's all going to come on Daryl, but Elton could sit back and learn.
True.
He can learn,
He'll
and
be
then
more
all of a
valuable
sudden,
in the league.
yeah, and then gradually, Daryl's gonna be like, "Hey, Elton helped me with this. Elton did this
Right.
gradually," and then all of a sudden, Elton would be better. He's gonna be better off to a
He'll be
point
the VP
within
of the
3 years.
Washington
Huh?
Wizards in 3 years or something.
Say it again. Yeah,
He'll be
yeah,
the VP of the
exactly.
Washington Wizards or something like that in 3 years.
Exactly. You never know. Like he could become the guy. But
Yeah.
right now, it's like everyone's going to be looking at him and saying, "Well, what is Elton doing? What is Elton doing? Is he the one, calling the shots or not?" So I
Is
think the
anybody,
fact that he doesn't have to fake or he
yeah.
doesn't have to like be the front guy is going to benefit him.
Let me hit you with one more conspiracy theory. Do you think this Morey deal was done before they hired Doc Rivers? Do you think this whole thing has been at least orchestrated to a point? I mean, I think a lot of people thought Morey was going to be gone at the end of the year. I don't think that was a shock. Doc obviously had to wait. He didn't know if he was going to be gone. Um, I would say I would think that a lot of this was orchestrated long before it was announced. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, you could. I keep going back and forth with
But
that one.
Dinwiddie,
I
but Din,
mean,
why is Dinwiddie taking this job if that's the case? And
I mean, Dinwiddie's taking his job because he felt like he was getting a promotion. Like he felt like he was going from number 3 to number 2,
right.
basically.
But my
Yeah,
theory, they all knew Daryl Morey was coming. Why would he have taken it? So yeah,
yeah, yeah. But I do think
feel
that
like Morey was coming.
all I can say is the sources that I had said they were going after Daryl Morey. They wanted a big time
Yeah.
president. You know what I mean? And it does like you know, I don't have any proof, but it looks kind of like okay. Like, you know what I mean? It looks crazy. Now the thing is, like people were saying that the owner, even though the owner like gave him an extension, in Houston, he was losing a lot of money. A lot of people are. And it was one of those things where they felt like Mari was going to leave, even though the owner said what he said. And I do know the Sixers they really like Mari. But yeah, it kind of I can see where a lot of people say that. Like, cause and then there was one particular time when the owner said, he said, if Daryl Morey goes somewhere, we think it's going to be on the East Coast, something like that. So, but
Yeah.
again, I don't have any proof, but I do know that you know the Sixers were looking for a president, man. They were looking. They kept saying they weren't, but they were looking for a president.
Well,
They
they
were
got
looking
their
for a
guy.
president.
All of a sudden, the city really believes that there's hope again. There was no hope coming out of Orlando. I mean, that team looked dead. They didn't look like they wanted to be there against Boston. They got smoked. Everything that they thought was coming together did not. Daryl Morey did say he loves the roster. There's got to be changes. If you are, rubbing your crystal ball, tell me what 2 or 3 moves you think are going to happen. Really, I mean, I know we talked about Simmons for Harden and some of those types of things. But if you were a betting man, who is not going to be on this team next year when we start in December, possibly?
Al Horford, if I was a betting man, but again, at the same time, they're in a tough spot because I mean we're thinking about this like they're going to vote in 2 days to see if the season starts December 22nd
Yeah.
or January 18th, right?
Hmm.
So you mean they're just going to come in here and Daryl Morey has 7 weeks to make a trade? That's tough, man. And then especially to a guy with a contract that some people may say, hey, he's 34 years old. That's a lot of money. We don't know if we want that. So that's a tough spot. So if I had to bet, like, I would think that maybe they may have to bring all of them in at the start of the year and then try to like maneuver something early on to get them out. Because see, here's the problem: if you get rid of Al Horford, and if I'm a team, first of all, I want Al Horford and I want that draft pick. And I probably want Matisse Thybulle too, right? Because it's like, dude, I'm doing you a favor. You're gonna have to give me something. And I don't know if I'm the Sixers if I want to get rid of Matisse Thybulle. I mean, they're probably gonna say take Zaire Smith, but
Yes.
teams aren't they don't want Zaire. So with that being said, it's just like one of those things where you'll say, well, maybe Brett Brown couldn't do it the right way. Maybe the front office were making mistakes. Let's see if we can do it. Now again, that's not I'm not saying that they don't want to trade them, but it's one of those things where I don't know if in this economy, this economy, I don't know if teams are willing to take on 27 million this year, 27 next year. 27.5 this year, 27 next year, and 26.5. I don't see it.
Well, you'll have to take something back too if you're going to do that. You're going to have to help them out somehow and give them now. Now you brought up a great point a minute ago, and that was another thing that kind of got my spidey senses up during the press conference. My take home was they've decided that Brett Brown was the entire problem last year. And what I mean by that is I don't think Brett Brown did a good job. I think it was the right move to move on from him. I think for a lot of reasons you and I have talked about over the years. It was time. It was time. I don't think Brett Brown's the only reason that this team failed last year. I thought it was poor roster construction, chemistry, a multitude of other things. Simmons wouldn't shoot. Embiid wasn't in shape. They didn't play well together. Harris didn't shoot. Richardson didn't fit. Horford was not the right guy. All those things. But didn't you get the feeling yesterday that it was like, hey, Elton put a great roster together. We've got the right coach. We're going to make this work. I felt like that was the narrative that maybe they're going with. If, to your point, Morey can't make any magic in the next 7 weeks.
Could be, yeah. But see,
Do you
here's the
feel that way?
thing. Yeah, I felt that way. But like, let's go back to the beginning, right? To the
Uh,
beginning. So they make the trade for Andrew Bynum, and then all of a sudden, everybody and their mom knew that Andrew Bynum had bad knees when they made the trade,
right.
right? So what do? The doctors get fired because Andrew Bynum basically couldn't play,
Right.
right? So then they get rid of the front office, right? So then all of a sudden they're tanking, and then they become the laughing stock. The next thing you know, Sam Hinkie's gone, right? So, it's like we all know about the Colangelo thing. So it just seems like there was always a scapegoat with everything. But the common denominator was the ownership had a heavy say in what went. Had a huge voice in what went on. So right now you look at it, and they said, well, the analytics guys had a huge input, and they made a lot of mistakes based on analytics, right? On their analytics. And Brett Brown didn't hold the players accountable. But the thing is, that's what they're saying, right? So they get rid of the analytics guys, and they bring in Daryl Morey, who is the most analytical
Yeah,
guy in
yeah.
the
Say
NBA.
steroids.
Yeah, on steroid. Like, it's like they got money ball, they got Maury ball, right?
Yeah,
So they use these other two guys scapegoat. And then Brett Brown, they talked about he didn't hold players accountable, or he didn't do this and do that. Well, it's hard to hold players accountable when ownership has such has such relationships with the players, with their boys. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, so
yeah.
if you're the
Michael Rubin
coach,
hanging out with Embiid. Yeah,
yeah, if you're the coach and you say you can't do that or this and that, and then the player goes to the owner and is like, look, man, you got to get rid of the dude. So how much power does the coach have? So yeah, they used him as a scapegoat, and they talked about what a great roster it was. However, before, when the season was over, they admitted that the roster was bad, that they
yep.
had problems with the roster. So yeah, what they're doing is they're making excuses. Now, Daryl Morey, in regards to him saying what a great roster, you have to say that
Yep.
because you can't come in saying, "Yo, we got to make trades, we got to do this, we got to do that," because you don't. At this particular point, you may want to trade. Okay, you may want to trade Al Horford. You, but you can't trade Al Horford. So you're going to have to trade someone else. So you can't have Al thinking publicly like, man, this guy hates me. And then he doesn't get traded and then they lost him. So, you got to do the praising and doing all this other stuff,
Yeah.
to say how great it is. But you are right. Like Brett Brown, Alex Rucker, and the guy Sergi Oliva were the scapegoats. They
No
were the
doubt.
scapegoats.
To your point earlier, I think if I were to guess, I would say there's no chance Josh Richardson's back next year. He's the only guy they could really get something for. If you can get a guy that can dribble or shoot, or God forbid both, you've got to take that opportunity. And you know what? You move Tobias Harris to the four and you bring Horford off the bench and see what you can come up with until you can move one of those guys. I think that's the most likely scenario. Would you agree?
Um, yes and no. And here's the yes is he is a
You'd like
great
to
option.
agree with me on my show. When I go on your show, we can disagree. But when you come on my show, you're only supposed to agree with me.
No, no, but you raised a great point. But here's me. This is what I'm thinking. If
Yeah.
I'm another team, see what I do is I'm thinking about other teams, what the other teams are thinking. Like now, if I would just want to shed salary, then I'm saying to myself, okay, yeah, like bring him in. I'll take him because a year later he's going to be off the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially off the books. Um,
But you'll have his bird rights if you really like him.
exact. But see, you have his bird rights, but you also, but see, it has to be one of those things. If I'm invested in him, I'm gonna need more than the bird rights. I'm gonna need to him. I'm gonna have to talk to his agent and say, look, is he going to sign? Is he going to resign with us? Is he going to pick up this option? What is he going to do? Because we need to know. Because the thing is, Josh is going to be a free agent. And the way this money now is a bad time for him. But if you look at the Sixers contract and you see that Tobias this year, Tobias Harris is going to make 34. Ben Simmons is going to make 30. Joel Embiid is going to make 29.5, and Al Horford is going to make 27.5, and you have Josh making 11. Josh is looking around like, whoa, I'm underpaid by at least 15 million. So a guy like him is going to want to get paid. He's going to want to get paid. Now I don't know if he's going to get it in this economy, but he's going to want to get paid. So that's something like if you're an opposing team that you're looking, and I understand what the Sixers, but I always try to look at it to see what is the other team thinking about the other player if they're willing to pull that trigger because he's going to want to get paid now. He's going to want to get paid.
I got to think he makes a lot of sense in a medium sized market team that has a hard time getting free agents because if you remember 2 years ago, he was the face of the Miami Heat. So he's got it in him to, I think he's better than what he showed last year. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's a little overrated, but I think he makes sense to a lot of teams.
I do, and the one team that I think he makes a lot of sense to is Oklahoma City because he's a local guy. I mean, he
Yeah.
grew up in the suburb north of Oklahoma, like right above north of Oklahoma City. Um, you know, he grew up, and he played football there. He was a standout football player and a standout basketball player. I think that makes a lot of sense because people know of him. They love him there, and that's homegrown. Now I know he owns a house in Miami, and what he can do is in the off season he could go to South Beach and have
Right.
a good time. But I think that he would get a lot of love in Oklahoma City, and I think they would love to have him.
They got a lot of draft picks too down there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing about Oklahoma City, they always want more draft picks.
They do.
you know.
They do. Well, then they can have Al Horford too and another draft pick, and we'll figure something out.
Yeah,
Maybe that's the deal for Chris Paul.
Could be. Could
I
be.
don't
I
know.
like
Chris
Chris
Paul and
Paul.
Doc Rivers are excited to work together again. That didn't end well.
Yeah, it didn't end well, but it seemed like from what I hear, I mean, I don't know, but it seemed like after years, people started, mend fences a little bit. And I guess if you want to win a championship, you win a championship.
Yeah, no doubt.
You
Keith, I could
know,
go on for another hour, but I think we should wrap it up here. But you are my favorite guest. I apologize to every other guest that I've told that they are my favorite guest, and I
you're
look
gonna
forward to
apologize to
having
me
you back.
next week.
How does everybody? How do people find you on Twitter and all your other social media and read your stuff?
You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Pompey on Sixers. And then you can read my stuff in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Is at you could go online, it's inquirer.com, and it's inquire with an I, not with an E. But yeah, that's where you can reach me.
Storyline on that.
Huh?
Not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Inquirer, the Philadelphia Inquirer.
yeah, not the National Inquirer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, man, thank you so much for being on the Killing Me Smalls podcast. Make sure to give me a follow. I am Real Mike Small on Twitter. And definitely subscribe to the Painted Lines on the YouTube channel or paintedlines.com. There's all kinds of good stuff on sports. There's a Painted Lines network for Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, Phillies. They've got stuff on comic book movies, all kinds of great stuff. So make sure you check it out. Thanks, everybody.